is Mrs. Beach. I'm here with Jacob Beach. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about History Channel's Alone, Episode 6.
First, we're going to talk about Dustin's tap-out video, and you can watch all of the characters talk about why they tapped out on the History Channel or on YouTube. Now, the first thing that struck me as impressive about Dustin's video where he explains why he tapped out was his honesty. He really didn't make any excuses. He was honest. And I feel like, it's very possible that some other people simply did make excuses. So watching him just go on there and explain everything how it was meant a lot to me. What did you think about that video?
Yeah, I felt like he was very honest and he just said what happened. He didn't try to, like you said, make excuses for himself, and I was very impressed with his video.
Yeah, so he strikes me as a really honest guy, and I look forward, hopefully we'll see him again in some other way doing survival videos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first contestant that we're really going to talk about for episode 6 is Sam. Now, we're still not seeing a whole lot from Sam. He did catch a salmon, and he did talk a bit in this episode. All of the contestants kind of had to talk about the weather. It was kind of an important topic for everybody there, and within the first 15 days, 13 days had already rained.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big deal. Sam said that for every day of nice weather, they had a week of crappy weather, which is pretty close to accurate. What do you think? What did you think about Sam in this episode?
Well, I wish that maybe Sam did, film it, but they didn't show it. I wish we could have seen how he caught that salmon. That would have been cool. Just did he use a net? Did he make a trap? But we didn't really get to see a whole lot of Sam this episode. Now, he did say that he feels like he's going nuts a little bit, being cooped up in your shelter, just dealing with the rain. And the History Channel also said, they had like the little captions, while you're watching the show. Last year, Vancouver Island received 220 days of rain. So these guys are, that's rough. A lot of them were just like, oh, the sun is out, so nice.
Right.
But as far as with Sam, I hope that, next episode we can see a little bit more from him. And I hope he doesn't let his mind eat away at him. And I'd like to see, some more of his skills and everything. So
With the salmon, Sam actually released his own video talking about it. And he said that he saw the salmon on the side of the shore and caught it with his hands.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that he had his own little video there, so cool.
What's kind of scary about that is you really shouldn't be able to just be walking along the shore, see a salmon and catch it with your hands. The salmon looked a little bit rough, and I'm kind of hoping that Sam doesn't get sick from it.
Okay.
I know that he mentioned that most of the meat would probably be good, so maybe he knows that the salmon's a little bit beat up. Maybe not. So I'd really hate to see any of the contestants have to go out for sickness.
Mm-hmm.
So, and hopefully next episode we'll see more of them.
Yeah, when your game is slow or easy to catch, could very well be that there's something going on there. So I would definitely be careful in a situation like that. Be really careful with what you're eating.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so as our viewers know, we're a pretty big fan of Mitch, but I kind of feel like he's been losing some steam. How do you feel about Mitch in this episode, Matt?
Well, what's a huge bummer for Mitch right now is his gear is getting moldy and nasty, it's wet. Mitch also said, who would want to sleep in an environment that's moldy, cold, and wet?
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't sound like a very good place. I wouldn't want to sleep somewhere like that. So hopefully he can get his equipment dry and it seemed like he had a little system that he was going to try to do. Let the rain wash it, dry it, wash it, dry it before he wears it again. Because mold, that's a serious thing. You need to really be careful around mold. Depending on the type of mold it is, you can die from it. So that's gotta be, hard. I'm sure he wasn't thinking, oh, I gotta, be careful because my gear could get moldy. It's probably not something that he thought would happen.
Right.
So he seemed really disappointed. Really disappointed by that. Another thing, this episode, we also saw Mitch eating salmon right in his camp again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he hasn't caught on to it yet. I don't know. But I'm a little bit nervous with that because that's risky to bring your food over to your camp because that is bringing in predators that you don't want to mess with.
Mm-hmm. I think that Mitch might need to work on his shelter a little bit. Obviously inside of his shelter is very wet. He said all of his gear, even sitting inside his shelter, is growing mold. Well, if your gear is on the ground, in an environment like this, you're going to have moisture coming up from the ground, even if it's dry in there. So I'm thinking maybe if he can put something down, put branches down, or somehow build his shelter up off the ground, it might help that. And with a lot of gear like his bows and arrows and stuff, simple use will keep mold down. But hopefully he gets that figured out. So far what we've seen from Mitch, in my opinion, is his ability to calmly deal with problems without overreacting, and I hope he does the same with this mold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
So hopefully he'll stick it out and figure it out.
Yep.
All right, so one of my most difficult competitors to talk about is Lucas. Lucas is a very emotional guy, and he often makes me feel uncomfortable. But he's very talented. So, how did you feel about what he did in this episode of the show?
Well, he's using that canoe that he built. He went out and found an excellent resource beach that's just full of clams. He got he said how many pounds?
He said 10 to 15.
10 to 15 pounds. That is a lot. So that's an excellent resource that he can keep, going to that area. Now, the scary thing is the tides and the currents crazy. So he just needs to be careful, and unfortunately he had to leave his canoe out on a area on the shore instead of, tucked back where he wants it to be. And after he found these clams, he cooked them and he ate them. Well, the next day he had really, really bad diarrhea. He said he had to get up multiple times, and you lose a lot of sleep, a lot of heat, having to do that.
You also lose a lot of water and a lot of nutrients.
Right.
So, a high risk of dehydration.
Right. And my advice would be to try to really diversify what you're eating. Have some clams, go try to find some mushrooms, try to forage a little bit on whatever plantation you can find, or kelp or anything like that. So I would try to diversify. I wouldn't try to gorge too much on one thing because, if your stomach's not used to having that much shellfish, it's going to react badly. So I would just try to diversify what he's eating.
Right. I think that the canoe is a great asset. Hugely impressive that he built it, but I think that he also needs to be very careful with it, especially in these tides. And you saw how quickly the tide goes up and down.
Yeah, that was crazy to see.
Yeah. So, it'd probably have been better off, instead of collecting 10 to 15 pounds of clams, maybe collecting 5 pounds of clams or even 3 pounds of clams, leaving the rest and eating a little bit. But what's really difficult is when you haven't eaten in a few days and you're really hungry, You know, just like Mom always used to say, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. That can be very difficult. So I was really impressed to see Lucas be the only character that we were really shown out working in the rain. I think that showed a lot of motivation and dedication, and I think that it's also better for the mind. So if you have a shelter where you know you can get dry and get warm and sleep well, and if you have clothing that will allow you to stay warm enough to work out in the rain, then it's really a good idea to be out working, doing exactly that. And so I think you didn't see a lot of the boredom or the mental struggle that a lot of others had with a lot of their extra time. But that's important for Lucas also because he really struggles with a lot of things emotionally.
I think Lucas is the only one that we've seen working out in the rain multiple times. When it's raining, he keeps working. He keeps doing what he's doing. I can't help but wonder how everybody else's gear is doing. Is anybody else having issues with mold, or how are other people keeping their gear from not getting moldy? So that would be interesting to find out. I don't know if we ever will, but it's still interesting.
And well, I think a lot of these other people have more synthetic materials, a lot more Gore-Tex and rain materials. I think Mitch had a lot more natural materials, a lot more wool.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure everybody brought some wool. Maybe Mitch just got his a little more wet or relied on a little more than the others did. Lucas is cleaning himself. One of the few people that we've seen doing that. A little awkward how he chose to portray that again.
We've seen a little bit of funky scenes from Lucas. I don't remember what episode it was. Maybe one or two back.
Looked like he was drying his butt with
the
fire.
Warming his buns. I don't know.
We're not sure what he was doing.
I just don't. I mean, that's fine if you do it. You gotta get warm. I just don't know filming it. I probably wouldn't.
Just a little bit awkward.
Probably wouldn't.
But. So, nobody quit in this episode, as I'm sure you've noticed. This could be considered either Alan or Lucas's episode, since both of them get a lot of airtime. But you know, I thought that Alan got a little bit more, so we'll call this Alan's episode. That's why we're doing him last. He also was cleaning himself like Lucas was, which got a little awkward. You know, had a little naked butt scene there. But you know, maybe that's your thing. But Alan did a lot of good stuff in this episode.
He really did.
A lot of it he spent trying to keep himself entertained. He wasn't out working like Lucas was. He was just trying to conserve energy and drink water and sleep. He quoted some Edgar Allan Poe.
So now we've seen cooking, we've seen singing, we've seen poetry.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Yep. He said one of the biggest challenges in this show for every competitor is going to be caloric intake in the mind. These guys, and we're seeing that Alan has struggled a little bit, as have all the competitors, with the mind part of the game, but he seems to be able to keep himself pretty even and explain the type of things that he's thinking about pretty well.
Right. And I think the gill nets that they have is a huge, huge asset. And we can see with Alan, he caught a crab and a really, really large fish. And he made this really cool stew. Alan has been excellent with diversifying what he's eating. So he had the salmon, the lipids, some seaweed, and the crab, all in this little stew. And I mean, that's excellent to be diversifying yourself like that. So that was excellent to see. I would definitely want to have a net if I was going to be out on Vancouver Island. Absolutely.
Yep. Now Alan did have a little bit of stomach problems also, like Lucas did, but he didn't make it seem like they're as bad. He made it seem to me like it was only only a one-time
Mm-hmm.
problem.
And you know, your body's gonna react if it's not used to having, you know, shellfish right off the shore like that. If it's not used to seaweed, your body is gonna react. But I still think it's important to, you know, diversify what you're eating.
Well, and what's good for Alan is that he knows where to get his food. So he knows that he can sustain himself on bull kelp and lipids, and then with his net and whatever else he may be doing, then he can go and get some crab every once in a while and some salmon every once in a while to mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't have to get bored with his staple food.
Right.
But if he doesn't get anything else, he still has a staple food. Having a staple food is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Being able to diversify that staple food is a luxury.
Great. Yeah, that's great. He said that he wants to make lipid shish kebabs. Is that correct?
Yep.
It's just funny. I mean, that's cool to kind of get creative. I love to cook, so I'm all about, you know, being creative and switching it up. So I really appreciate him, you know, trying to do that. I think that's a great way to preoccupy your time thinking about, you know, how can I make this food better. So that's really cool. And something else that we saw, we got to see Alan's cooking camp. Got that all set up. I thought it looked cool.
It's great. It's something I was going to talk about as well.
Yeah, excellent idea.
I wish Mitch was thinking in the same direction. So what I keep on thinking is, come on, Mitch.
Yeah. And then something else that we saw really smart from Alan was after he got that fish, he gutted it and did all that messy stuff away from the cooking camp, away from his camp, and just out on the shore.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, really smart. Because, you know, all of that blood and all the pieces that you're not going to be using, they're down there. They're not at either one of your camps. So that was excellent.
We also got to see him use a kukri in dispatching that salmon. It was a lot more effective than Sam's method. You know, a lot of people say that the kukris can't do small chores, but we saw a nice little spoon that Alan made with his kukri. That
spoon was awesome, and that's another way to kind of preoccupy your time and you're making your camp and your tools better.
Right.
So that was a really cool little spoon. I've been thinking, how cool would it be for these guys to take stuff back like that? You know, a little spoon that you made. It would be awesome if Lucas could take his canoe back with him.
Right.
I just don't know if that will happen or not. But that would be really cool to take back stuff that, you know, you made out there. Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
Right. Along with Alan keeping the food away from him, he does the same thing with the lipids. He throws the shells back into the water.
Yep.
So Alan's being very thoughtful on how he's preparing food.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we've also seen Alan have any problems with predators at all.
Yeah, I don't think that, you know, not that we've seen on the show, so.
But maybe it's because Alan's about the size of a bear and bears just don't want to mess with him. So
I don't know, but he's being really smart with, I was really, really impressed with Alan this episode. Absolutely. I'm really impressed with the cooking, to be honest. That's cool. So, it's neat.
So last episode we asked everybody who they thought would win. We really liked hearing your responses. And I hate that in our commentary who we think is going to win keeps changing. What I want to say is that I think all 4 of these contestants have a great shot. But I really feel like Alan is getting together what he needs to stay there as long as he needs to stay there. He's got a staple food. He gets 2 meals a day, diversified meals. He's creative. He's constantly making stuff. And I think mentally he might be in the best spot. You know, I'd say mentally Mitch might be in the 2nd position, but I think Mitch, from what we've seen, has kind of slowed down his progress.
Yeah.
Whereas Alan is building.
Right. Mitch is really struggling with the gear. situation. And Lucas is still struggling emotionally. I don't know how long, that's gonna last. And Sam's having some difficulty being away from his wife, and she's pregnant, so that makes it even worse. And, right now, I'm most impressed by Alan, because he's, like you said, he's making these little tools that are better for making his situation and everything better. And, he did have a little bit of difficulty. Of course, he misses his family. But he's still able to entertain himself and to stay in pretty good spirits about everything. So I think right now I can see Alan lasting the longest. But that could change. We'll just have to see.
What's so interesting is that we're down to these 4 competitors. They're all excellent. We got to see an episode where in another week nobody quit. It's going to take a lot to dislodge any one of these 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little more exciting to see who's going to quit next. Before we kind of had an idea. Even in the first episode, I already guessed who was going to quit. Now, it's really up in the air.
Right.
That's really exciting. We're seeing more of their skills come out.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing more of the environment. The environment's getting worse, so it's going to push them harder every day. Every episode, I'm more excited for the next episode than I was the last.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, in future episodes, we might try and use some video clips from the show. I don't honestly know how to do that right now, but that was a really good recommendation from Jacob. So if we can do that, we will try and make things a little more entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But for the time being, please watch. Let us know how you feel. We'd love to discuss anything with you. And we hope to see you next week.
See you guys.
Have a great week.